Well, the staff at a Sudbury school are elected democratically by the existing staff and the students that are there. And basically, they're elected based on the criteria of how useful the school community considers them to be. And they can provide that usefulness in a million different ways. They can provide it by just being a fun person to have conversations with and be around. They can provide it by having some knowledge that is useful, specific knowledge that people like accessing, like if they know a lot about science. That usefulness could be in the form of managing some aspect of the school, like admissions.
I think the most important thing is definitely a commitment to the idea that young people should be given the freedom to pursue their dreams. If any adult has that kind of commitment, the rest of it can work itself out, I believe.
I think staff members really are effective when they have a very firm understanding of the Sudbury philosophy, and they're they're excited about it and they're passionate about it. And then they take that philosophy and they put it into their work life at the school.
So somebody who's dedicated to some variation of that, I think, is going to be a really good person to have on board. Now, after that, it simply depends on what the students are looking for, what the school is looking for.
I think in order to be successful, you have to be able to work the balance between being tolerant of a wide range of viewpoints and behavior, while at the same time being willing to draw the line and take a stand as a member of the community at a certain point when behavior becomes detrimental to the community.
And then another thing I think is that that is important is that the staff members are people who parents will look at and say, yeah, I want these people to be role models for my children. And the kids will look at it and say, I want these people to be role models for me. And that, I think, more often, that's the hardest one to assess, because most of what makes somebody a good role model is internal. It has nothing to do with their educational background or what they've done with their lives or how many musical instruments they can play. It has to do with who they are as an individual. And that's hard to assess when you don't know somebody very well.
What did you think about electing the staff people?
It's hard for the staff people, of course, but if you're going to have people as equals, and some of these people are hired to be there and are working, then I don't see another way to do it that's equal. I mean, if you don't elect them, then who decides?
There's elections, and then it goes to the school meeting to decide who works how many days.
Yeah. Do you sometimes worry that maybe they
every year
don't re-elect you?
Every year, I think even the staff people who are the most solid get nervous about it. And on the one hand, we're trusting the kids to know what's best for them and know what's best for the school. On the other hand, you get kind of scared that what if some event happens a week before or 2 weeks before election and you piss a bunch of people off, which I think you still have to run that risk at Fairhaven every day of getting fired in a way. And, it could happen.
Elections are difficult, and it's difficult for the staff to not have to have a one-year contract every year and always have that up for discussion. But I think it's necessary.
Did you kick out a staff member already?
We had one person in people that were in training for staff that weren't accepted, and one woman that was put on probation eventually quit herself. But she'd gotten a shorter contract than the rest of the staff, and she might have been eventually fired.
How is it for you to vote on who is going to be a staff member?
that I can say has got to be one of the toughest experiences of my life, because we sat in a room for 10 hours total discussing this with most of the staff present, and there were heaps of suggestions. I think when we finally got to the stage of actual concrete proposals for the setup of staff for next year, we had I think 14, something like that, 14 proposals, and it was very tough voting on them. It was very tough discussing it before. It was very tough proposing the proposals, but we did it, and we did it because it was important that it gets done. We couldn't just say, oh well, whatever, because we had to reach a decision. We couldn't just leave it as it was.
The fact that there's such a feeling that we're equal to them, we respect them so much as friends and as people, that makes it that much harder to sit there in front of a room and say, I don't think that so-and-so is appropriate staff for the school, because we're so close to them and so friendly with them.
Well, I know it's tough. I know it's a problem for very pragmatic reasons, that sometimes by the time we come to vote on who's going to be staff, they already have to know whether how many days they're going to be free to work in other jobs next year, because the school doesn't pay enough to sustain most people. So I know it's very tough.
The fact that there's a vote every single year deciding whether the staff members stay or not means that every single year you got to be up to beat. You got to get the majority of the people to vote for you. It's different than any other job that you don't usually get fired unless there's a reason, in particular. And every single year you got to prove yourself, and you got to get all the votes or you won't be in. And
that has a very positive effect on the staff behavior, because when you know your continued job at the school is not promised, then you'll do your best to keep it, usually, if you really want the job. And I think it improves the quality of the staff members. I think they wouldn't be as good at their job if they wouldn't have to be on edge like this every year.
Because most of the schools require that if you want to be a staff person, you have to interview for a week before you, that's how it works at Greenwood, that's how it works at Sudbury Valley and some other schools. And at the end of the week, the students get to know you pretty well, and you get to know the students fairly well, and at least the environment. And I think that for most people, that's probably enough time to know, oh, is this the right kind of school for me? And the other side of it is that there's no tenure, so if somebody does decide they don't want to be there, the students are going to know that too, and it works itself out.
I mentioned earlier the ego involvement and being an agent of the transmission of wisdom. Certainly that'll work against you. Children are very good at seeing through pretense in general, and I think if you have them, they'll strip them away fairly quickly. And if you're not comfortable with that, that can be difficult. I think you have to be willing to have every word that you say and every decision that you make analyzed and scrutinized by anyone who wants to analyze and scrutinize it. It's like having a lot of bosses. That it really every kid in the school feels like I work for them, and if you're not comfortable with that, then it's probably not a good place. I think that the environment forces you to be very real and very honest all the time, and I think that's always taken effort for me, and I think it probably takes a lot of effort for a lot of people.